Okay, I'm a little older now, and I'm 10 years old in 1947, and I'm reading Nancy Drew or some kind of mystery, not great literature, but I read lots of them. And despite the fact that I'm dressed this way in a dress with hair ribbons, I am on my way to summer camp. And this was the summer of 1947. My father had returned home at the end of the war, and then he had to go back to Japan. So we're still in Pennsylvania, and soon we will go to Japan to live, but in the meantime, we're still in Pennsylvania with our grandparents. So I'm going off to summer camp, and this was the summer that I first appeared in print. There I am on this page of letters from children to a children's magazine that I subscribe to. Every month, probably for 2 years, I've written them a letter. And finally, in August of 1947, they published my letter. My mother wrote me a letter. This is no email, no cell phones in those days. My mother wrote me a letter to my camp where I was for 2 months. And she said, I just got a phone call from Jack and Jill magazine, and they're publishing your letter in their next issue. I'll send you the copy when it arrives. Well, I fell into a panic. It was really cool that they were going to publish my letter. But unfortunately, when I arrived at camp, let me describe myself first. I was a very shy child, very introspective, quiet. But I was also, and this is still true of me, very observant. I knew everything that was going on at any given time, even though I often didn't participate in it. I was the guy who watched everything. And when I got to this summer camp, which was all little girls, and the counselors were college girls, I observed that when the counselors asked the little girls about their families, they were nicer to the little girls who had brothers in college. And so when they asked me about my family, I described my little brother John, who was 4 years old, and my sister, who was 13, and my brother, who went to college. And they were, as I had expected, interested in me. They liked me better. What was his name, they asked. David, I said. Where does he go to college? Well, I'm 10 years old. I don't know anything about colleges. But I had a great uncle that I heard people talk a lot about because of his college connection. He was such a devoted graduate alumnus of Princeton that he wouldn't go to his daughter's wedding if it was the same weekend as the Princeton reunion. So there was a lot of murmuring in my family about Uncle Fulton. And so that was the only college I knew of. So I said, Princeton. My brother goes to Princeton. They liked that a whole lot. And it was like creating a character in a novel. Does he have a car? Yes. Convertible, I said. It's kind of surprising I didn't say roadster, because that's what Nancy Drew's boyfriend had. At any rate, when my mother wrote to me and said they were putting your letter in the next issue of this magazine, I knew that I had described my family in the letter. I have one sister and one brother. My brother Johnny is 4 years old. So I lived in desperate fear that somebody at that camp would see this and realize I'd be revealed as a liar. Nobody ever did. She sent the magazine, I glimpsed inside to see my name in print, and then I put it in the trunk under my bed. Nobody ever knew. Okay, at the bottom of my letter it says I am writing a book. It was called A Dog Named Lucky. I'm on chapter 13. I have no memory of that, but at the time, I was always writing a book. I was not above lying, as I just described, but I don't think I was lying about A Dog Named Lucky. I think I got to chapter 13, and each page in my little notebook would have been a chapter. And by chapter 13, it got hard. And it's still true. It's easy to start a book, for me at least. It's easy to end a book, but in the middle, it gets very hard. And so I suspect that I gave up on A Dog Named Lucky. But many years later, without remembering this at all, I did write this book, the only book so far that has been published that does not have a human main character. And this is all written in the voice of a dog. And as you can see, Keeper's story. His name by the end of the book is Keeper. But he goes through several sets of owners or masters or whatever you want to call them. In the beginning, he's abandoned by his mother. He's born behind a French restaurant. And they live out there, he and his litter mates and the mom, by the trash cans. And then Mom, in a very trashy fashion, goes off with a Doberman and abandons her puppies. And the dishwashers at the restaurant take the other puppies, but they don't see this one who's hiding. And so he's alone and makes his own way in the world. And so for a while he lives with, what would you call it, a homeless guy. This is set in New York. And the guy discovers that with a puppy by his side, as he stands there asking for money, people give him more money with this cute puppy. So that's here. What's his name, a woman asked, searching in her purse for some change. My new friend looked down at me. I sat with my best posture, tilted my head, waited to hear his answer. A name is an important thing, and except for little endearments from my mother and sister, I had not had one until now. Lucky, he told the woman. Lucky. So apparently a dog named Lucky had stayed in my brain all that time and then ended up here in this book. I mentioned that this is the only book published so far by me that doesn't have a human main character, but at the end I'll tell you about a book that's coming out soon, which will be the second that falls into that category. Here we are, a passport picture headed to Japan in 1948. My brother would have been 5, I'm 11, my sister's 14, she's beginning to get very glamorous. And here we are in Tokyo, where we lived until I was 14. I did not dress like this every day. You can see the wreath on the door, it was Christmas, and I don't know why they got me up in Japanese clothing. I loved Japan. I've been back several times, and it's a place that I was very happy. But I've jumped way ahead now. Not too far ahead, because I left Japan when I was 14, and here in 1956 I'm getting married just after my 19th birthday. I had gone to college with a special scholarship to Brown University to study writing. And 2 years later I just dropped out to get married, because this was the 50s and often women did that then. My boyfriend was graduating, being commissioned in the Navy, and so women in those days just sort of followed along behind a husband and became a helpmate. And so I gave up some of my creative aspirations, but very quickly I had created a whole lot of children. Let's see, that was 1958, I was married, this is 66. I don't remember how old the kids are here, but these are my 4 children. And so people have often asked me if I wrote for my own kids when they were young. And I had for many years said no. I read to them a lot, and we have lots of books. But I was busy, and also when my youngest child started kindergarten, I went back to college. So I was busy finishing college and going to graduate school, so I didn't really have time to write for them. But then that youngest child there, Benjamin, on the right, who's now all grown up and was 48 years old the day before yesterday, was moving, and he was cleaning out his attic, and he sent to me a book that I'd written for him when he was about 7, he said, and illustrated badly. Now, I'm not an illustrator. I'm going to show you this, and the story is brilliant. But the illustrations leave a lot to be desired. But Ben said he was always very fond of it. I don't have the title page, but it was called The Hippo in the Hollyhocks. Fred, said Mrs. Bartley Smith to her husband one lovely summer morning, there is a hippo in the hollyhocks. Nonsense, said her husband after he had investigated. There is nothing in the hollyhocks except 2 grasshoppers and a chipmunk. I have suspected for some time now that you are crazy. And even though I pointed out that the illustrations are amateurish and badly done, I do think Fred's butt is